Okay, good afternoon. We're going to start now. So good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Many Devices, One Solution, sponsored by Absolute Software. We've got a lot of great content for you today, and we got some great speakers. Before I introduce the two speakers, I have a couple housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded today, and you will get a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a copy of today's presentation and a copy of the PowerPoint slides used during the presentation. Additionally, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of this webinar, so if you have any questions, please use either the Q&A box in the right-hand corner of the screen or the chat box as well. So without further ado, let me introduce today's speakers. We have Mark Boltop, the Desktop Management Lead at Lewisville Independent School District, and Tim Williams, the Director of Product Management at Absolute Software. So to start, we're going to be starting off with Mark. So Mark, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. As Liz said, my name is Mark Boltop, and I am the Desktop Management Lead here at Lewisville ISD. First off, thank you to eSchool News and Absolute Software for coordinating this event today. As these things normally go, I'll start off by giving you some info about our district. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about our philosophy as a district, and specifically the technology department, give you some info about our organizational structure so you can hopefully make some correlations to your own organization. And we'll talk about how we've come to rely on our partnership with Absolute Software in managing the life cycle of our approximately 69,000 devices. Our district is located in North Texas, just northwest of downtown Dallas. We're a fairly large district. We have approximately 52,000 students in the district, and we support 70 campuses across 13 different municipalities. So a lot of challenges to our size and scale, and we'll talk about that a little bit deeper today. Approximately 2 years ago, during the 2011 and 2012 school year, district leadership and our school board worked with over 5,000 community leaders, members, students, and families and faculty to establish what the district called its strategic design plan. And the purpose of this plan was to clearly define for the district what our community leaders and members saw as the most important factors to reforming education and really creating an environment where students were engaged and successful. Technology is viewed as a highly contributing component of our learning organization and a key factor in the success of our students. The strategic design plan itself is a comprehensive strategy to achieving that desired engagement and success, and the committee defined district goals and beliefs that directly support our mission and vision as a learning org. By no means is the plan technology-centric, but it does recognize the need of technology to engage our learners. And as you can see by goal number 2 on the screen here, really our goal is to engage learners through the use of technological tools to be able to access, create, and share content, as well as collaborate with others throughout the world. And this statement is simply recognizing the fact that today's learners are engaged in different ways than they have been historically, and that the tools we use daily for business are important to their learning process. Belief number 6 I find a bit more interesting, and I always like to share it because it doesn't explicitly call on technology to be the core of innovation in our district, but obviously it does lend itself to that. Because of the ever-changing landscape of technology, there are really few technologies, at least in my opinion, that are intrinsically disruptive or even sustaining character. Rather, it's the business model, or in our case, the education model, that the technology enables that really creates a disruptive impact. So to simplify, it's a teaching style that we aim for that is disruptive innovation, but it's the technology that really allows for that innovation. And I mean technology in general, must be adept at change. And this is particularly true here at Lewisville ISD, as we're called upon time and time again to quickly implement and support emerging technologies to create instructional impact. Well, at the same time, we must also inherently limit that impact on internal technology resources and our support so we can maintain a level of service. It's that supporting the district's goals and vision that really drives us as a department, and ultimately it's a supporting role to instruction that we take, and it's their needs that move us forward in our approach to delivering technology. And this organizational thinking was kind of new to us back in 2011, 2012, and it caused us to look internally at our organizational structure within our department to really try and identify opportunities in how we deliver support to the district as a service department. So first, we really started looking internally, and we noticed and recognized that our technology support has historically been very site-based. Each principal was responsible at each school for hiring a technology facilitator for their campus. And these folks were often spread thin with other duties to assist the campus, maybe such as lunch or recess duty. And they were offered very little training from technology on our systems, and they had very limited rights and abilities to manage our systems. They were first pointing a few issues quickly due to the limited role they occupied. They weren't empowered from a problem-solving standpoint in their position, though many were very successful at it and had a lasting impact on their campuses. But as a first step towards a reorg, we moved all this technical staff under technology. And by moving these folks to a more traditional technician role, we were able to free their time to focus solely on technology support, which in most cases obviously results in a shorter turnaround time to resolution. It also allows us as a department to operate in a more project management role, which is necessary for any large-scale implementations and initiatives that we might take on. Also, due to our size, we decided to take a more refined approach when dealing with campuses and their specific needs, and we actually divided our district up into 3 geographical support zones that our campuses operate under, and we assigned a technical lead to each technical team per zone. Though we were expanding our presence in this manner, we also wanted staff to take on a larger role supporting themselves. Many folks these days own personal devices, and they're able to perform some low-level problem solving, maybe such as simply doing a reboot to get them back up and running again on their own with their personal devices. But they historically look at technology to perform even the most basic steps for them at work. So we didn't just want to expect our end users to fully support themselves by any means, but we created and now maintain some great live and written technical resources. During the reorg, our help desk was expanded from 1 to 3 people, and we established an end user knowledge base, both of these with the goal of creating a more self-servicing user base. And then finally, during the reorg, technology also realized the importance of having a team dedicated to automation and remote management of machines, and created the desktop management team. The desktop management team is really responsible for establishing processes and best practices, working alongside other department teams such as the technical zone leads, creating images, software packaging, updates, as well as acting as a third tier of support for the district. And it's this team, the desktop management team, that works directly with our vendor partners like Absolute Software, resolving large-scale issues that impact our systems and devices. And really that's the basic of our organizational structure on the technical services support side, a model that drives self-service but promotes remote support options and of course technical folks available for hands-on tasks, really covering the entire spectrum of support with a very limited staff. In the district, we have approximately 50 technicians, and we have currently 5 folks on the desktop management team. So a very large environment, very few people, a lot of hands-on support that needs to be done. So when we began to meet as a desktop management team in July of 2012, we really went to work first identifying our areas of greatest potential impact. And we set some basic goals, mostly with our talks centering around standardization. At that point, we had many different hardware specs running a very Windows-centric environment in the district, and it was tough to keep up with the management of these machines. Recognizing the importance of standards and how they benefit our field technicians, we wanted to create sustainable and scalable processes that limited opportunity for human error. our hope here was that we would be creating easy processes that limit task time compared to technical staff having to remember maybe complicated instructional sets to perform a specific install, for example. We knew that part of eliminating the human error factor meant monitoring of compliance, specifically in regard to software installs and licensing, updates, et cetera. A compliant machine to us is an easy-to-manage machine. If we can make the processes and systems work for our technicians and not against them via these highly complex systems and rule sets, that really our end users would benefit from an increased level of support. We also recognized the more we could do remotely, the less our technicians would have to perform in the field. So we wanted to focus on decreasing the need for hands-on work for simple tasks such as updates and software installs. Once these team goals were defined and laid out, we really worked to try and identify areas of opportunity and gauge their impact towards achieving our goals for the purpose of prioritization. We found that our greatest opportunity areas were those that caused the most frustration for our technicians, were the most error-prone processes, or created potential issues in regard to compliance. So in a nutshell, we chose to first focus on imaging processes and our ongoing maintenance. We also focus on software distribution and hardware and software inventory. Again, with the thought that if we know what's out there, we know that it's compliant, we know that we can get the proper software to it, that we're going to have a solid environment. And when you really look across all our goals and opportunity areas listed above, you really see a complete life cycle of a device, from imaging and deployment to software installation and updates of software to daily remote management or hands-on support, all while maintaining an accurate inventory. And it was clear that LISD at the time needed to take better advantage of our management solutions. But as usual, there's always a little hitch in the giddy-up, and as I noted before, instruction is really what drives technology in LISD, and adapting to their requests is vital. So while we were creating in our minds the utopia of a standardized environment with maybe a single image for all of our machines, instruction was calling on us to take a much different path in supporting their role in our strategic design plan. If we take another half step back and talk about disruptive innovation again, I stated it's the technology is not the innovation, but it is a driving factor for the innovation, and that it allows us for new education models. Our instruction and curriculum departments were looking for a way to increase student engagement, and they started throwing around terms like project-based learning and student-led instruction. And as you recall, hopefully our own goals within strategic design called on technology tools that allow for creation, sharing, and collaboration. So in the fall of 2012, we started looking at becoming a dual platform environment, mixing Windows and OS X, OS X machines for student and staff use, to really accommodate some of those needs through the intrinsic creativity and collaboration tools that instruction and curriculum saw in various one-to-one initiatives. The district started talking about our own one-to-one project to supply a device to a large percentage of our students at that time. And we looked at several models from around the country, McAllen, Texas, Mooresville, with their laptop-based initiative, and a multitude of other models in and around our vicinity. And through various visits and conversations, district leadership began looking to the Apple products as they best supported our direction. So quickly, very quickly in fact, desktop management's pipe dreams of a highly standardized set of systems began to fade away. But we would learn later that's okay. We were a little misled in our direction to begin with. So even though our single device utopia was gone before it was ever realized, we recognized that we had a rare opportunity presented by this request to go to a dual platform. We really had to build a robust remote management-centric environment from the ground up for our feasibility testing. We got to press the proverbial reset button on all of our technology process and reestablish best practices as we started building out that environment. And we started working in our lab that was established for device evals and testing. working on making the basic business functions actually function. We started with the basics, like joining the computer to the domain, establishing wireless connectivity, delivering network shares. And it was during this phase we worked to establish whether or not we could deliver a consistent end-user experience and that certain features our end users were accustomed to could be duplicated in some familiar fashion across both environments. We wanted to establish good business processes and standards out the gate, still knowing, of course, that we were really building the plane while it was flying, and we saw that change would come rapidly as we addressed various issues that we ran into. We knew a robust management solution was necessary to facilitate the speed of changes, and so we put several through the paces on both the OS 10 management and MDM side of the house. We were already looking from our initial conversations at methods for refining our PC environment and creating best practices. So the project really fell in line with our goals and offered the desktop management team a place to test our processes before implementing on a large scale across a production environment. So that was very important to us to be able to refine things behind the scenes. I had two team members working together on both the iOS and OS 10 environments, looking at various solutions for management, and I had two remaining team members at the time focused on maintaining and third-level support of our production Windows environment. So with this structure, we instantly saw the advantage that working with a single vendor provided the OS 10 and MDM environments, and we were able to narrow down to a few solutions that supported those features. My two teammates working in those environments were able to closely collaborate in the early stages. We've actually divided up responsibilities a little more clearly since then, but it was our partnership with our vendors that allowed us to advance rapidly through feasibility testing and move to a larger scale proof of concept. So really, after establishing the business basics, we got the green light to do a larger scale POC, proof of concept, which basically covered the full student population of one of our high schools and two middle schools. In our 1-to-X model campuses, we placed a number of MacBook Airs per classroom and provided a MacBook Pro and an iPad for each teacher and an iPad for each student who opted into the program. We purchased the devices and contracted setup through a third party. Getting our first deployments off the ground was very cumbersome. We chose to utilize the third-party service for imaging and deployment, and this really left us with little control over the deployment process. All devices were being imaged off-site, meaning they couldn't join the domain until they were being brought on-site. It also meant that we'd be doing one-and-done tests on our image. In other words, we would ship off an image to the third party. They would image one machine, send the machine to us. We would review it and approve that image. It was very difficult to make changes, and like I said, we were so early in this process, and our iterations of our images at this point were very close together. That obviously meant there were a number of updates to run its setup, and that resulted in delays in the setup process that had to be performed as the devices were brought on site. So getting devices on site for setup had its own challenges, as we had to coordinate with each campus a place to set up temporary switches and power so machines could be brought in on pallets, unboxed, powered on, setup packages run. And we had to coordinate the sharing of logins and passwords to test connectivity and our AD connectivity and wireless connectivity. And at login, then, as I said, additional updates would have to be applied by our management solution, which was necessary because all the changes made between image approval and delivery of the device. And that would add time to the deployment. It took, in all, 3 evenings to deploy about 650 machines to our model high school campus. In all, to get a machine deployed and compliant, it took 6 to 7 touches of the device and at least 4 power cycles. So needless to say, it was a very slow process, took a lot of technician time after hours, and it really didn't seem like the streamlined, error-free process we were aiming toward with our team goals. In addition to that, we're paying to have this burden bestowed upon us. We're paying a handsome price for the setup services through this third-party vendor. And we kind of thought that we could do better, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So we're spending a lot of time and energy rolling through feasibility testing, rolling through POC of what would become known as our 1 to X model. And 1 to X, while obviously very similar to a 1-to-1, represents for us at Lewisville a philosophy around technology delivery, that we're delivering technology to students, but, and this is something we saw at attempts in BYOD, we knew it wouldn't be the right tool all the time. So the X in 1 to X is just a representation of student choice in finding the right tool to use in their education at the right time. So our grand plans for our PC environment have been sort of pushed to the wayside, so to speak, for the time being, getting technical service teams up to speed on the new processes in the Mac environment, and establishing other business processes around deployments for our 19,000 plus iPads to students in the fall of 2013. And at the start of the 2013-2014 school year, we're still working on the assumption that we'd be keeping SCCM. We'd been using it for several years in-house to manage our PC environment, and most likely we'd be upgrading our 2007 environment to 2012 to manage our approximately 35,000 PCs. So we're working on trying to resolve some issues in that environment by replacing desktop towers that we were using at each campus for a software distribution point with a true small server class machine. And what that did for us by upgrading our equipment eliminated the issues we had with system uptime, which was a big issue for us under SCCM. And it was a good step in keeping SCCM limping along, but we're still struggling with the environment in several other ways. For example, we're using Ghost for imaging, and we had some very, I'll say, robust images, all with very specific purposes, such as an image for Lab A at Flower Mound High School. And some of our images were very bloated, up to 40 gigs. Technicians worked around the district using these images stored on external hard drives. So the images were created, in some cases never updated. There were hardware-specific images and more like software-specific images at times. And the original could be out there for months or years potentially before a technician was provided an updated version. Our technicians were following this very outdated, inefficient imaging process. On top of that, SCCM agent install required several steps beyond the image process to get the agent talking properly to SCCM. And this made for error-prone installs, meaning many machines weren't on speaking terms with SCCM. The result was obviously inaccurate inventory and a very difficult environment to effectively remotely manage, update, and maintain. The more challenges we faced, the clearer it became that redefining the PC environment in the vein of our OS X environment was necessary for the sake of both maintaining our newly established standards and also simply for ease of use and inventory integrity. So putting the pieces together, we had this project that was requiring us to reevaluate and rewrite all processes and practices. And we had this aging legacy environment that needed very badly to have a process overhaul. And we were piloting a product that would allow us lifecycle management of all these device types. And the pieces quickly came together, and we recognized that the ability to standardize our management solution across platforms fell right in line with our other goals of standardization and reducing workload and reducing training needed. And we looked at Absolute software heavily to fill this need. And we fully adopted Absolute Managed Suite in spring of 2013. So we've been using the product set from feasibility testing to pilot to production for just under a year and a half. Purchasing Absolute Managed to us was really a matter of lean thinking, trying to eliminate as many variables from the environment as possible. By having a single management solution for all environments and one that could support a multitude of device types on the MDM side, we're able to easily create a synergy between platforms through common processes and practices. And the console for the management is the same for both the OS 10 and PC environments, meaning there's a familiar interface for our technicians and for our desktop management staff, no matter what device they're working with. Commands are in the same place. Groups and policies work across platforms. Error logging is similar. These were all great benefits to us, as it meant it allowed for ease and cross-training of staff across the different environments. Additionally, MDM is able to manage any major mobile device platform, meaning we can support any device type and are flexible as instruction needs us to be and technology changes. Right now, we're an iPad shop. We hand out iPads in our one-to-one. That doesn't mean that's what we're going to be doing next year or the year after, and we didn't want to have to change management systems to be flexible with instructions needs. We wanted to create sustainable processes, and you must have a system that supports that sustainability, and we found that in Absolute as a device agnostic system. Additionally, the mobile device management side of Absolute allows us to easily handle provisioning devices properly, whether they're district purchase or personal devices. So this ensures that students who opt out of our 1-to-X initiative can still receive the same services, maybe such as an e-book delivery and in some cases app distribution. Absolute has really become our one-stop shop for BYOD, MDM, OS 10, and PC device management. So after completing our first POC at our high school and straddling that line between support of our first deployment and preparing for upcoming deployments to our middle schools, we started to look deeper at refining our deployment methods as we knew we needed to improve things. And we had what we considered our light bulb moment when we were working with curriculum and instruction on secure delivery of an e-book. We were using district-wide for our AP World History students. And utilizing Absolute Safe in conjunction with MDM, we were able to securely deliver the e-book in a more efficient manner than they had done the previous semester to students and staff, based solely on their enrollment in the course, and controlling their ability to move, email, or copy the book in accordance with the publisher's contract. And what this did was this brought us together with our textbook warehouse, where they were already asset tagging and providing iPads to the AP World History students. Our talks with them about their deployment models for our POC coincided with a decision on a larger scale to move forward with year one of our 1-to-X project. And that would entail providing devices to all 4th, 7th, 9th, and 10th graders in the district. We saw an opportunity here to really treat the iPads as a textbook, at least in the deployment sense, and create a deployment model with which the campuses were already familiar. They already understood how to get textbooks out on a large scale to a mass number of students. We just attached on to that process. And in those talks, dealing with all of our third-party contracted setup services and those issues, looking at the cost of that, we decided that we could do a little bit better in-house for a lot less money. And the relationship with our textbook warehouse spawned what we call our Technology Deployment Center. And this is where we really fine-tuned the deployment workflow and brought the first phases of the device lifecycle in-house. We partnered to establish the processes utilizing existing staff, not having to hire anybody additional, and created processes that did exactly as our goals asked us to do, to limit human error, to ensure devices were up to date and ready to use at all times, especially before they hit the campus leaving our deployment center. This saved us many man-hours at deployments, and we actually now deploy Absolute's agent as part of our imaging workflow, ensuring all machines are accounted for in management. A single staff member can manage the deployment process, or the setup process, which totals just about under 15 minutes per machine. That's from taking it off the pallet from our vendor, putting it on a new pallet, ready for delivery to a campus. We run 25 machines at a time, and we can scale this out by simply adding more staff. And if you look at the slide, you can see the costs associated with our third-party services, and you can see the number of devices that have moved through that technology deployment center in the last about a year and a half, and you can calculate some significant savings based on that. So while working through these deployment challenges and tweaking things at the deployment center, we had made the determination that we wanted to move away from SCCM to absolute managed to handle our PC environment. And we had really seen the advantages of having a single solution, like I said, on the OS 10 and MDM side. So we knew that eliminating another management solution fell right in line with our lean thinking model. And we engaged professional services from Absolute to assist in creation of a transition plan for our legacy Windows environment from SCCM to Absolute. We really needed a quick transition, and this was mainly due to the timing of the changes with other projects and coinciding with the start of the school year. Additionally, we had an opportunity at this point, again, to go back and offer some deeper technical training to our technicians. Their role had increased, their access had increased, their responsibilities had increased, and we needed to train them on how to remotely manage machines. We didn't really want to spend time training technicians on SCCM since we knew at a certain point that we'd be moving towards Absolute. Nevertheless, our technical services group needed to have that increased ability immediately to support the start of school. So with the transition from SCCM to Absolute Manage, we're now applying our processes and management strategies for the first time to a large-scale production environment. So, of course, downtime was of the highest concern. And all in all, I'll say this was a very easy hurdle to overcome, and that's because we could use SCCM and Absolute concurrently until a full switch had been made. We were able to utilize existing servers. The servers we had just purchased a few months before didn't have to be put to the wayside. We reconfigured them to be software distribution points for Absolute. They still perform our Windows upgrades through WSUS. And we created a GPO to install the Absolute agent upon boot up of a Windows machine. And off we ran using Absolute as our Windows management solution. Anytime a machine was booted, it would get the agent, and the technicians or the desktop management team could instantly start managing that device remotely via Absolute. So the transition was very quick and painless, and really had little to no negative impact on our service level on the Windows side. The agent installed in a simple and automated manner. Our existing software packages were easily moved to Absolute after the transit, and the transfer was seamless to the end user, which was very important to us. Overall, we were very pleased with how easy it was to get things running in that legacy environment. So if we just kind of summarize and talk about 1 year later, we are year one into a 3-year project, and the tools that we have adopted have made going to scale doable. Absolute on the OS 10 and PC side are very stable environments. We can rely on those environments heavily. MDM is keeping up with the available device feature sets that vendors are putting out, whether it's Android or Apple with iOS. And that allows us to always be on the cusp of innovation and offer new programs to our end users very quickly. From a support perspective, we're using Absolute to support many aspects of the business beyond just device management. We utilize Absolute to monitor usage of machines. We have a high level of accuracy in inventory so we can monitor software compliance. We've used Absolute to resolve discrepancies in other inventory systems that we maintain. And we've implemented Absolute's power management features to help the district limit unnecessary electricity usage to save us money. So there are a lot of different usages that we've found with Absolute to support driving different business decisions. From a maintenance perspective, we've saved an untold number of man hours as the slide says, we've pushed approximately 500,000, it's actually probably closer to 750,000 packages out to our environments. And what that means is several 100,000 physical touches of a machine were not necessary because we did that work remotely, and a lot of times in a very automated fashion, utilizing Absolute. So all in all, we've dealt with a lot of change in our environment over a very short period of time. Like I said, just about a year and a half. We've had to overcome some other hurdles during the project too, and these are very likely very common for anyone working through a project of this type. Our technical staff really had no expertise on the OS X or even the mobile device side. These were new areas to us. The desktop management team was composed primarily of MCSEs and network specialists, not OS X admins. We had the fundamentals because of that, and we applied those fundamentals to this new environment. And really, it's those fundamentals that are important. It's those best practices, not the machine type that you're dealing with, but the practices that you implement and that your management system can support. At the tech level, technicians didn't perform tasks in SCCM. They didn't have access, so they didn't have to worry about remote management. They had no experience with the devices. Very few people in general, outside of maybe some art classes, graphic design, and our communications department hadn't even touched a Mac before. But through Absolute, we've been able to provide greater flexibility in technician task and access to those management tools. And that gives us the opportunity to fix issues remotely, be preemptive in resolving problems. Additionally, it was very important for us to create a common support experience, create a common experience in general for the end user. Technical staff was very busy learning a completely new OS, dealing with large-scale deployments of mobile devices, and all while establishing and learning these new processes. So while we were building our environments and processes, we wanted to create a model to transition our PC environment and create that common support experience. And that was a little tough and a big challenge for us, but we feel like it's something that we've been fairly successful at across the board. And one of the major complexities to that is that we were dealing with devices, at least at the very start of the project, that were not enterprise-centric devices, meaning the management tools and how much control those tools were allowed was not really there. And I'll say Apple's come a long way, especially on the iOS side with iOS 7, between their device enrollment program and managed distribution, along with some additional controls, that's helped us progress through and kind of overcome some of those challenges. And then finally, of course, a common problem is limited staff. In addition to limited knowledge or skill in administering this environment, we had a very limited number of staff. Our technicians, on average, if you average it out, are responsible for about 1,300 devices each, and that's a lot of responsibility. So those are some of the challenges that we've dealt with, overcome. We still deal with them on a daily basis in some regards just because of the change factor. So just to touch on what the future holds, and then I'm going to hand it over to Tim with Absolute. We're removing our XP machines. We're turning them into Linux web stations. They'll be very basic stations. We're going to utilize Absolute Manage to inventory these machines. We'll be doing additional deployments in the fall. We're looking at iPads right now, but from our perspective on a technical services side, because of our management tools and the standardization there, we don't really care what device it is. We can manage most any device type utilizing our existing tool sets. We're also working on managed app enrollments and pushing out apps to our students that currently have iPads. We've been waiting on Apple to release that program and have now done several scaled pilots of that managed app process, and it's been very successful being able to monitor the performance of the MDM as we start sending it out to a large scale. And then finally, we're looking at Absolute Service, another Absolute product. It's a work order ticketing system to replace our current work order system. And our hope there is a tighter integration between device management and device support can be found via a single comprehensive tool set from the work order perspective. So that's it from my perspective. Feel free to tweet me with questions. You'll be able to ask questions here in a minute, but I will go ahead and hand it over to Tim with Absolute.
Thanks very much, Mark. Really appreciate the overview of the challenges that Lewisville faced, and I expect that probably a lot of other school districts are facing the same challenges that you did. So my role today is to give you, kind of pull it back from the real world that Mark was talking about into the Absolute Software ivory tower, give you a little bit of an overview of us as a company and a little more formal overview of the software that Mark was talking about. Absolute Software has been around for about 20 years. We're not going through the details of the timeline today, but I think it's important to point out, especially in this era of rapidly changing mobile technology, that we've been in the business of managing and securing multi-platform mobile endpoints for 20 years, and that's pretty remarkable when you think about it. It makes us very much an old-timer in this industry. Now, admittedly, in 1993, a mobile device looked a little bit different than it does today. You know, it was a $4,000 laptop with a modem plugged in, so the technology's changed. The challenges have changed extensively, and so we have been able to adapt and change with that technology. But I think that our philosophy of supporting the multi-platform devices has enabled us to do that with a great deal more flexibility than some of the companies out in the marketplace now that have risen up and come into existence just within the last couple of years. Now, I would offer, and I think if you look at some of the things that Lewisville's been doing in managing their devices, you'll kind of see that even today it's difficult to really narrow down what is it that we would call a mobile device, because it seems simple to say, you know, I've got my smartphone, I've got my iPod Touch, I've got my iPad or Android tablet, but then we've got these other devices rolling in there, Surface tablets and other Windows-based tablets that, from a user perspective and form factor, are certainly mobile devices, but when you put them on your network, they're computers. They run Windows, and they have the same sort of management challenges as computers do. So there's a lot of blurred lines there, which is why we take an approach that's a little bit different than a lot of the solutions that are out there in the marketplace. And so, I had to give you a word problem here, which is, all this new technology, a lot of different network challenges as well, because now we have to manage all these wireless networks and public and private segments, as well as a changing regulatory environment. Our answer to that, and the solution Mark had mentioned that they've implemented in Lewisville, is Absolute Manage. Now, Absolute Manage is a single solution that does the complete IT life cycle for your Mac and Windows computers. And that includes, software repackaging and remote installation, license management, configuration management, patch management. Mark mentioned computer imaging that you can automate and do in-house instead of relying on contractors outside. Very detailed asset inventory that gives you at the click of a mouse the kind of data that, previously I know a lot of school districts spend a lot of the summer break with flashlights and clipboards getting that inventory information. But information is power, and as Mark said, this really enables a lot of other business decisions within the district as well. And power management, which is more than just nodding your head to green IT, but it saves your district real dollars on the electric bill. Mobile device management, again, within the same management console that gives us the same kind of detailed asset management to all the devices, automates the provisioning of those devices. It's not imaging the way we do on computers, but in principle, in practice, it's kind of the same thing to get them set up with the configurations and apps that they need, but also in compliance with this kind of security requirements you may have, not just within the district, but also to remain in compliance with the various regulations. managing the apps that are deployed out to these devices, and as well, mobile content management. You know, in the business world, mobile content management often has to do with, securing confidential corporate data. In school districts, there certainly is confidential information, but as well, it's a tool for centrally managing the distribution of e-texts. And ultimately, what Absolute Manage brings to you is a unified management for all those smart connected devices. As Mark said, they're using iPads today. That's the overwhelming favorite among tablets, but next year, the year after, it may be something different. Our view is that we want to offer a platform agnostic tool that recognizes, your back-end network and servers, that may not change overnight, but what's out on the endpoint is a very dynamic landscape right now, and you need to have a tool that can really adapt to all of that technology to make it easier for you to focus on your real job, which ultimately is not managing devices, it's enabling education. So if you're familiar with Gartner, one of the leading industry analysts, they do publish Magic Quadrant reports in technology, and I've got two different ones represented up here, one for client management tools, Mac and Windows computers, the other for mobile device management. And Absolute Manage actually appears in both of those Magic Quadrants, and that puts us in a pretty small group of companies that are represented in both of those Magic Quadrants, and the only company that's in there with a single product in both of them. And I think really the important takeaway for you on that is that, we produce product that school districts which have more limited resources will be able to deploy and configure and maintain over time a lot more easily than the kind of companies that build platforms for Fortune 200 corporations. So I think that brings us to our Q&A time. So I will hand back to Liz, who can throw your questions at us.
Great. Okay. So we've got a bunch of great questions coming in, and obviously continue to bring in questions. So the first one is for Mark. What other products did you look at before choosing Absolute?
We looked at several products. Of course, we were using SCCM. We had a Jamf Casper installation in-house already. We looked at AirWatch and, of course, Absolute. I'm trying to think if there were some others. Mostly we looked at different options on the MDM side because there are a lot of different vendors in that market. Ironport, Blue Coat, for example, both have MDMs tied to their content filtering solutions. So we looked at those as well.
Okay, great. And then I'm not sure if this is for Mark or for Tim, but someone did ask if it's a yearly cost to use Absolute.
Yeah, this is Tim. I'll take that one. The pricing is offered with a lot of different options because we recognize that there's different kind of budgetary constraints on how you need to acquire and finance the software. So it is offered either via term licensing, single or multi-year, but it's also sold as a perpetual license, which would have an annually renewable maintenance with it as well.
Okay, great. Another one, how do districts keep an up-to-date operating system in place while containing costs?
Well, I could talk to that. As far as how we do it, we utilize Absolute to push out updates on the OSX side, and we utilize WSUS to put out our updates on the Windows side. So, by doing it through an automated remote install, we're saving extensive cost because we don't have to physically touch those devices. On the mobile device side, that's an end-user action. So we don't have staff that goes around and updates every device on the mobile side. But we do utilize the existing tools for remote updates on the OS X and PC side.
Yeah, Mark brings up a great point about the mobile device operating systems. They are managed differently, so you can't push a new operating system out to the mobile devices. But one of the things a lot of our customers do is set up smart policies so that, you know, for example, a few months back there was an iOS update that there was a reason you'd want to ensure that people updated very quickly because of some security concerns. And so a smart policy would enable you to kind of take those devices. If you need to remove some of their access because of a risk, you could do that, or simply notify the users to make sure that they update and have a good report on which devices haven't yet updated. And then on the computer side, you know, the automated patch management as well as imaging capability enable you to centrally manage those operating systems.
All right, another question that came in. Where can I find information on cloning OS X images with Absolute?
You know, I'd start with our user forums at absolute.com. That's a great place to find the information as well as, you know, share information with customers who are using the software.
Okay. You know, Absolute manages PCs and Macs, but what about other mobile devices like Android?
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch on that one, Tim, and then you can add if you want. You know, that device agnostic approach is something that we really looked at, and Absolute filled that gap. Like I said during the presentation, right now we're distributing iPads, but we really looked for a solution that could support any option. As we knew going down the road, we'd be doing further device evals. You know, technology changes so much, and we didn't want to lock ourselves into a solution for iPads. We didn't want to lock ourselves into a solution for just OS X management. So, you know, Absolute does have the ability to manage multiple device types across either the managed side or the MDM side, including Android devices.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that's also important to bear in mind, like I always like to say, is, you know, Android is not a singular noun. There are literally hundreds of variations of Android out there. And as a result, a lot of the manufacturers of those devices support their own management APIs. So Absolute Manage does cover those Android devices and specifically covers a lot of those, like Samsung has a very extensive management API. So if you adopt Android, just as an example, you probably would want to standardize on specific models, and we do support a lot of those various manufacturers, as well as the Windows-based mobile devices, iOS, Mac, and Windows, and even some limited support for Linux desktops.
All right. How long did it take to deploy, install, and what type of servers did you install on?
If we're looking, on the back end, the setup was very simple. You know, it's some executables to install the management pieces on the back end. We run it in a virtual environment, so it's running on VMware. All of our servers for both the managed side and the MDM side are in the virtual environment. And really the install was very quick. The deployment piece happens at deployment time, at setup time of the device. So overall, you know, we spend very little time dealing with Absolute from an install perspective. Deployment, the agent gets put on the machine during imaging, and with that, it reports into the console. So install is very simple, and we spent very little time on that overall.
Okay. Next question, or are we still on that one?
I'm good there unless anybody has any further follow-ups.
Okay. This is kind of a two-part question because I got two people asking questions and they kind of work well together. Do you manage anyone's personal device, like BYOD? And also, how active does IT need to be in deciding what mobile devices will be allowed as BYOD devices?
Yeah, I'll touch on both of those. You know, to answer the first part, as far as BYOD, our one-to-one initiative is an opt-in program. You have to choose to receive one of our devices. If you have your own device, you're more than welcome to bring it into our district, and we will allow users to enroll their personal devices in MDM. We set up specific policies for those devices, or I should say we've created policies in a way that we ensure that personal devices only get what a personal device should need. We're not placing additional restrictions, for example, on a personal device because that's not our place. So it's very simple for us. They enroll their device through a website, and they're in. They get the policies. They fall into our BYOD policies, and they get the resources that they need. That does allow us to deliver e-books to students on their personal devices if they've opted out of the other programs. Repeat the second part of that question for me because I want to make sure I get it right, Liz.
It says, how active does IT need to be in deciding what mobile devices will be allowed as BYOD devices?
Perfect, thank you. We don't have any participation in that. You know, again, our philosophy and really what is modeled by our 1-to-X project is that the student has the choice. They need to make the choice to use the right tool at the right time. And so we're not going to tell them that they can't use a specific type of device. That does present challenges for us in some ways, but for the most part, we're able to utilize our existing policies to provision those devices in a proper way. We have guest wireless access, so if nothing else, students can bring in their laptop, connect up to the internet, and get, you know, have that connectivity that they need. So we take a very limited role, honestly, in any BYOD or any technology that comes into the district because our purchased devices are determined by instruction and curriculum. So technology kind of takes a back seat, and that's why it was so important for us to be able to manage a multitude of devices because we didn't know what the decision would be or what we would be managing exactly at all times.
Yeah, I would just add, you know, Mark brings up a really great point, which is that, you know, Absolute Manage is all policy-based management. So whether it's district-owned equipment or employee or student-owned equipment, the hard part of the work is deciding what policies apply, what access do they get, what apps do they get, what content do they get. But once you set up the policy, it's automated, so that kind of day-to-day repetitive task of actually provisioning that device is all automated according to the policies that you've determined. And then on the question of how active in deciding what models are allowed, I encourage folks to visit our website. We've got a white paper up there on best practices for BYOD that discusses some of those points. So if you just want some perspective that we've gathered from working with a lot of public sector and private sector organizations on BYOD the last few years, that white paper I think will give you some good info.
Okay, and one last question, because we're almost done. How good and quick is Absolute software in responding to support calls?
You know, our partnership with Absolute is something that we value greatly. We've had people on site. We've had professional services and worked with professional services. We've transitioned just recently to global support. And our experience, you know, from that partnership perspective has been an amazing partnership. And global support is very responsive. Whether it's something we have to escalate or not, typically we get a question or an answer back from support when we submit a ticket within an hour or two. I've seen very few cases overall where we haven't had almost, you know, what I would consider a near immediate response to our issues. And we've been able to work on that partnership and develop that, and Absolute has really been there to assist us. And like I said earlier, it's one of the reasons we've been able to move so rapidly through this project, through our feasibility testing and POC, is because of that partnership and the support that we've received from Absolute.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, and I'm not going to, rate ourselves, but I will say that in Gartner's Magic Quadrant report, one of the positives they called out about us is that Absolute received the highest ratings for customer support of any of the companies that they evaluated, and we take great pride in that.
Okay, great. Definitely learned a lot today. So again, guys, thank you very much for attending today's webinar. Again, this webinar was recorded, and you will get a follow-up email with a copy of the recording and a copy of today's slides. If you have any questions, you can follow up with me. My email address is at the bottom of that slide. And again, thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you again at another event. Thank you.